Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're just going to be doing some bit of a Mundo guide slash review video here. Just kind of going over how I play Mundo. I'm actually playing Mundo mid lane today. He's normally played top or occasionally jungle. I honestly think he does have a decent spot in mid into certain matchups, especially those early game AP assassins that are just a little awkward. You kind of get around them with Mundo's brute strength. You'll kind of see that later in the video. Just going to show you how to properly lane his Mundo, kind of run over his abilities. Now I'll just go ahead and wait on the game to start here. Now at level 1, I take Mundo's E, Blunt Force Trauma. This ability is really good at level 1 because it allows you to poke through the minion wave and also push the minion wave at the same time, as you can see here. I like taking this over Cleaver at level 1 just because Cleaver requires you to get line of sight on the enemy, and that can be a little harder to do in that first wave just because of how tight it is. As you see, I hit another E poke there. One other thing to note, Q can be taken first in the tougher matchups to where you have to stand all the way back, stuff like Darius, maybe Renekton early game. But in these matchups where you're kind of allowed to touch the wave, E is undoubtedly the best first choice. I mean, you can see it there. I've already poked her down a good chunk, and I'm already at level 2. Hit her with the cleaver, walk on up. Now, at this point, I could have probably ignited, maybe gone on for a flash on her. Kind of ends up being good that I didn't go for it, though, because Viego comes in here. A little bit of an issue on me for not warding early on the bottom side. I just didn't expect him to do this. Now, this showing off right here is why Mundo is ridiculous in the early game. A lot of people forget that his E gives him scaling AD based on missing health, which allows you to turn around these fights where normal champions couldn't. One important thing to note about this fight, however, is that I took the time to go up to this bush to separate myself from the minion wave. I knew if I took too much extra damage I could easily die in that fight, and I didn't want to take the red buff damage for too long. That's why by falling back I was able to hit him with Qs and stall it out a little bit before engaging and trying to end the fight as quickly as possible. Speaking of his Q, let's run over it real quick while I recall. His Q is just a linear skill shot that costs a bit of health, which I should have mentioned with his E as well. All of Mundo's abilities besides his ultimate cost health to use. As a trade-off, he doesn't have mana. His Q is a linear skill shot that deals damage based on the enemy's current health. Important thing to note, it's also magic damage, making you harder to itemize against, which is handy when you can't build too much damage on a character like Mundo. The magic damage, like I said, goes up pretty highly with level. Gets pretty dang high, I think it's 25% max rank, to where you're really going to be chunking enemies when you hit them with that Q. As you can see, it's also really good for farming, as it can let you sit back in weird situations where the minion waves are too big. It's also good for just straight out poking enemies. Another thing to note is that hitting your cleaver allows you to get more health back, so it's always a good idea not to just throw random cleavers that can't hit anything. Instead, try to throw cleavers that, even if they don't hit your intended target, will hit a minion behind it. Now, as just a general mid lane tip, you saw I pinged out the Akali missing. You might be wondering why I didn't try to run after her. It's because farm is very important on Dr. Mundo, and I actually have him running Demolish on this page. So if she fully committed to that bot lane gank, which as you can see they're falling back, so it's not that good, I could have potentially got a turret blade. That's why I opted not to roam there and just focused on shoving the wave to also help deny her CS. Mundo's laning phase is pretty straightforward and involves mostly just poking and prodding the enemy laner and then keeping them under turret. Especially once you get level 6, Mundo's actually pretty resilient to ganks just because he's hard to kill. You can run away, he has CC immunity, and if you have flash up, you're just very hard to pin down. I do actually get caught out here later, and this is just by me being too reckless and not knowing that the bot lane support had roamed up. You'll see that in a bit. Moving along this laning phase, not much happens for the rest of it. I'm pretty much just trying to poke the Akali out whenever possible and shove that wave in to deny her as much farm as possible. I haven't really used it yet this game, so I'll mention it when it happens, but we'll talk about his W. His W is the, I can't actually remember the new name. I guess Heart Zapper is the new name. But when you activate it, it costs 5% of Mundo's current health, and there it is. It'll put damage around you in an AoE, and also stores 25% of the damage you take as gray health. That gray health, if you hit it on an enemy champion with the end of your W, which blows up, allows you to restore all of it. If you only hit minions, you only get 25, I think 50% back. As you can see here, I hit a nice little cleaver. Now the reason I go for this kill is because I have my ult up. I wait until I take the damage before ulting because you get missing health back on that initial cast. When you're needing to survive that burst, try to wait till the last second. Mundo's ult is a big part of his kit. And we'll talk about it as I'm getting kind of owned by this server here for a bit. Mundo's ult will give you about 20% missing HP back at rank 1, and also increase your AD based on your bonus health. The nice thing about this increase on the 20% missing health is it's considered kind of like giving you max health, so it's actually not affected by grievous wounds. You also get about, I think, 50% at rank 1, I can't remember exactly, of your health back as health regen over 10 seconds, along with a movement speed boost. This ult is the literal definition of a steroid, and it helps you stick on targets and survive the blunt of the blows. Ideally, you want to try to wait, however do realize the AD buff it gives you can be crucial to winning those early fights, so sometimes popping it early is a really good idea, just to get that extra damage. Now, I haven't really been talking about it, but let's talk about our itemization on Dr. Mundo. For itemization, I usually like to go for a Doran's Shield first, as it's just the best all-around item for Dr. Mundo. Giving him extra HP, gives him extra damage, and also just gives him extra health. Not much to say about it. Mundo is prone to getting poked, so giving him extra health regen is always a plus. And then I just take an extra health potion with the 50 remaining gold. Now, as you see here, Akali has roamed down, but I committed to just shoving the wave. This is because I have Demolish again. By the time I got down there, the fight was most likely over, so I decided to instead go for the turret plate. Now, as for the items I took after this, I usually like to pick up an early rejuve bead on Mundo if possible, as this just helps you get some extra HP regen to sustain against poke lanes, especially stuff like Akali. Also, Mundo just likes HP regen in general. Next up, I'll usually go for a Balmy Cinder, as this helps you get wave clear and also extra damage. And as for the Bramble Vest here, you might be wondering why I'm doing this into something like an Akali. This is because there's a Vayne top, Severe bot, and a Viego jungle. I know I'm going to need this Bramble Vest later Thornmail into the game, so I just opted to take this earlier. That way I had a defense against ganks, because this Akali is just not a threat at the moment. As you can see, I am building into a Frostfire Gauntlet. I do think this is Mundo's best mythic by far. You can sometimes go Sunfire Aegis or Kim Tank. However, I feel like Kim Tank's pretty weak right now overall, and Sunfire just doesn't work as well with Mundo as Frostfire in my opinion, because Frostfire is giving you that bonus HP, and the slow is really good for Dr. Mundo. Plus, with their enemy team comp, if you look, they're all kind of kitey champions except maybe Viego, so most of them are not going to be staying in an extended melee with me too long by choice, so having that extra damage on the Sunfire Aegis would kind of be wasted. The slow is much better. As far as the boots I run this game, you might be thinking I need to run Mercury Treads just because I'm going to get some magic lineup, but this is where you actually need to run Steel Caps. For the same reasons I mentioned earlier, you got a Vayne, Viego, and Sivir. Even though Sivir is probably not going to be auto-aim you too much, you're going to need it. Now, another reason I don't opt for Mercury Treads here is their team's doesn't have a lot of CC. The only CC they have is the Lux Root and the Viego Stun, and also Vayne Pin, sorry. Now, a lot of people think that picking Mundo into teams with less CC might be worse, you're not being able to fully take advantage of that passive. In my opinion, this can honestly be better, because if there's less CC, that's really the only thing able to stop Mundo. So if there's only 2 instances of CC, as long as I avoid the main one, which is the Lux Root, or use my passive to tank it, I'm an unstoppable monstrosity. Mundo, even though his strength is being able to block CC, that is also his biggest counter, is getting hit with layered CC. So low CC comps like this still work really well for Mundo. It's just kind of a little myth. People think, oh, there's no CC, don't pick Mundo. No, still a great time to pick Mundo. As for the reason I picked him mid this game, the reason in Champ Select was because we had a Gwen and a Lilia on top and jungle. That's plenty of magic damage for our team, and we didn't really have a tanky lineup because I didn't realize we were getting a Trundle. So I figured giving Mundo would not only be good into the Akali matchup, but it would also help us just get a solid map control with my pushing and give us a good front line late game. We'll kind of go over his items on Mundo later, all the rest of them as the build kind of completes, probably at the end of the video. However, right now I'm going to go over Mundo's runes. For Mundo, you're obviously going to be going Resolve, as this is just his best tree by far. You can sometimes go Conqueror on Mundo. I don't think it's his best, but it can work sometimes like in a jungle position. With Grass being your main rune, because it's really the only one Mundo can take advantage of in lane, you want to run Demolish as your first one. This just helps you take turret plates. Mundo's a decent split pusher with his AD buff and auto reset already. This just helps him. Next up, I almost always start taking Second of Wind now. A lot of people like bone plating for that early game pressure. However, I found Second Wind just synergizes so good with Mundo that this typically is just better throughout. Now, as for, and some, oh, another thing I was going to mention, some people like conditioning as well. I think conditioning is good on Mundo. It scales really well. Oh yeah, this is where I was a little too cocky. I'm going to die here, I believe. This was bad. Flashing over that was pretty terrible, and not much I can do about it. I got ganked. That was a really good gank by them. I had no vision. I was playing way too cocky. Next up on his rune, some people take conditioning, like I said. I think this is really good, but that second wind just helps you out so much in lane. What's the point of conditioning if you have like half the armor and magic resist that you would be amped by that at that point because you're so far behind? Just take second wind, it goes good on the window. As for his last one, I think Overgrowth's pretty much the only option here. Some people like to do Revitalize just because it gives them that extra bit of healing, but honestly, it's just not that good in practice. Unflinching can be good into heavy CC teams, but even then, Overgrowth's just so good for Mundo because it's increasing your health, and any health increase for Mundo also increases his damage. So it's just such a good option for him. As for my secondary runes, I typically like to run an Inspiration on Dr. Mundo, mostly because you get access to Approach Velocity, which just synergizes so well with Mundo's playstyle, allowing you to stick on your cleaver hit targets very well. As for the next one, I typically just run Boots because it's the best option for him in this, and it also allows you to rush your tank item without much regard for having to build Boots early. Plus, you're not typically roaming a ton on Mundo in the early game the way I play him. He can have good bot lane roams, but it's not my main priority when I play Mundo. That's why Boots are just not as big a deal for me. If you are losing, it does suck, but with the second win and the build I've kind of given you, hopefully, as long as you don't play stupid or you're in a terrible matchup, you should be able to scale pretty safely. Alright, now if the runes, we're just going to keep kind of watching the gameplay here. Now I ended up going top. You see that she's freaking out. They think I'm going bot lane just because of that skirmish starting. The reason I'm going top specifically into this Vayne is because Vaynes typically tend to be a bit vain and push up way too far without vision. Sure enough, that's what this Vayne does, and I just kind of take it slow and run on her. I'm not really trying to freak out here because Mundo, as long as you have ult up, it's going to be really hard for that Vayne to get away. Unfortunately, our Gwen does die, and I will put that on me. I did miss too many cleavers there. But in fairness, it is Vayne. Now you see, they completely wiped my bot lane, so you might be saying, wow, that was a bad roam. And realistically, my team probably just should have backed out. They forced that a little too hard. But at the end of the day, I already had first turret, and now I get 2 more plates off top lane. So at the end of the day, I think I ended up getting a really good outcome out of this. And plus, my general philosophy is take confirmed leads, not risky leads. What I mean by that is, by going down bot, I maybe could have got 2 kills, but by going top, I could get a kill and get 2 plates. That's almost dang near guaranteed. Taking safe bets is how you get good leads and how you keep good leads. Taking risky plays is how you get those montage games, and it's also how you feed your brains out. Now you can see I'm starting to itemize into a Force of Nature. The reason I picked Force of Nature into this team over like a Spirit Visage, which is typically your Mundo magic resist item, is because of Akali, Lux, all these champions are trying to kite me, Vayne especially. So as I'm getting hit by these different spells, I'm going to be building up that movement speed and getting extra MR. That extra MR is just going to pretty much negate the 2 MR threats on their team, while allowing me to get speed. As you can see here, I think I had flash this. Did I have flash here? Oh, I didn't have flash. But either way, once you get in here, it's just a matter of throwing cleavers and popping ult. Mundo is a terrifying champion to try to run away from, because he's just hard to. You'll see later I even opt into more things to get movement speed, as it's one of Mundo's most important stats, because even though he's a big blob of stats, he can't do anything with them if he can't get in range. Now through here, you're just going to see us just kind of push out. Nothing much to say about this. Mundo's just going to keep doing Mundo things. I try to push the tower a little bit, kind of move in. I notice this Vayne's getting a little too risky, but at the same time I don't want to back up to it. I see my teams are already moving up that way anyways. Pushing waves out on Mundo is big because you need to get your full build as soon as possible, so you can just completely free yourself. I originally was going to roam up to this, but with that double kill and the Viego, the Gwen, Vayne, and Akali all being there is a little risky. Once I see this up here though, I know I'm just going to go in on it. As you can see, Vayne's ghosted, so I just run at her straight line. A lot of people want to throw a cleaver there, but the reason I don't is because she's focusing on dodging it. If someone's trying to dodge your cleaver on Mundo, they're going to inevitably go back and forth, which allows you to close that gap anyways. So all I wanted to do was get as close as possible so I could auto her, then Q. This is just a big thing to do because if you throw that cleaver and miss, they can potentially get away because you have to stop to throw it. Now you see I got that good old Force of Nature going, and I'm also starting to work on my Warmogs, not my Thornmail. Typically I do Thornmail second to last or last, as Mundo can't actually proc the 60% anti-heal on it. It just gives you extra armor at that point. So that's why I'm opting here to go into the Warmogs. The reason being is I don't want to go into a specified item right now, and Warmogs is just good on Mundo, gives you a lot of health, which gives you damage as well. Plus, the out-of-combat heal could probably be utilized pretty good in this game, just because we're kind of a skirmishy team anyways. Now, with the Viego and Vayne being top, I kind of want to take my time here. I didn't want to fully commit to coming up, just in case I run into both of them. That's why I kind of linger back a little bit before walking up. Once I see the Vayne's there, I decide to wrap back around just so she has less time to avoid me. This fight, I play a little badly, but pretty slow. You don't realistically want to pick up the canister there, but I was pretty confident, and the main reason I did it was just in case the Viego happened to be coming up, I could get my passive up in time. As you can see, I'm pretty much in perfect condition after this, so I can just go wherever I want. This is the beauty of Mundo, since he doesn't have mana cost, and late game you're going to be having some insane health regen. You're not really tied down like other champs conventionally are, and you're free to pretty much do whatever you want. Now, as you can see, we actually do have another kill coming up here. Mundo is very scary to play neutral with, just because of his cleavers can start chaining. This was actually a really good play by our Trundle support catching them out, and all I want to do is follow up with cleavers and keep the pressure on. Now you can see a little trick here I do on the Akali is activate my W to figure out where she's at in the smoke cloud. That's just because Mundo's AoE damage can reveal camouflage targets. This is a good thing to do. It can also work against champions like Shaco. Now in this fight, I just got a little too cocky and got hit by 3 Vayne autos. That was on me. I should have backed out a little earlier. That being said, we'll go ahead and speed things up a little bit. Now, as we come back out here, you'll see my items. I got my Force of Nature. Still working on that Warmogs as we go down here to this fight. Kind of walk over how I go through this fight. Once I see that the Sivir is ulting, I'm just trying to get out here. I know there's no way I can realistically fight this, so I pop ult early to get movement speed heading out. Sometimes it's much better to pop that ult to get you out of damage's way instead of trying to heal as much after taking damage. Here, I've completely commit onto this Viego because I know he's the main threat. Unfortunately, I kind of get gimped here by the Akali ult, and plus Viego being able to copy people's items. As soon as he took that Draven, I probably should have backed up because we know that he's going to have that Shilpo passive. That was a bit of a misplay on my part, and I honestly shouldn't have got caught out down there to begin with. But as you can see, our team's just going to have to defend the siege now. Moving along in the game, what you want to do in these little neutral game sessions is kind of position yourself and your objectives and just focus on hard shoving waves as Mundo to buy your team some map pressure. You're really good at shoving these. Once Vayne activates her ult here, just start backing up and throwing cleavers. She's going to be hitting you really hard, and when she's in stealth, you can't even fight back as Mundo. So a lot of the times you're just looking to time out Vayne ults. However, if you're already beating the crap out of her, use your W to keep on top of her so she can't juke you out with her stealth, and just keep hitting her with cleavers. Now in this team fight, I opt to go for the Vayne over the Viego. This is just because she's the only thing that can realistically kill me. After this, my team commits on Viego. As soon as that Lux flashes out, I want to make sure this Viego dies. I get a massive shutdown here, and we can just go in and push. Even though there's a Lux alive, I'm not really concerned, as I'm pretty healthy on Dr. Mundo, and when you're like that, Lux just really isn't a threat. Now, this Lux makes a pretty big mistake here, trying to stay with the Trundle here, and she's just going to get kind of tower dived, and we get this tower here. As you can see, Mundo's really good at taking turrets, and just kind of keep destroying the map. As long as you can deny people crucial turrets, deny them waves, you're eventually just going to pull so far ahead that they don't have the resources to stop you. Vayne realistically should be demolishing me in this game, but I'm consistently either killing her in team fights or my team is helping pressure her off of me, which just lets me run around and do whatever the heck I want. Now that we look over here, I've got the Warmogs, and I also decided to get my Thornmail completed. Now, the reasoning behind completing the Thornmail here instead of going into a different item is because I'm going to be going another armor item anyways. So I opted for this upcoming potential Baron fight to just go ahead and have my armor fully up, especially now that I have the Warmogs. You can see I'm already at 4k HP here at 23 minutes. I'm a quite the scary beast of a man right now. Reason I'm not trying to get frisky with these two ADCs right here is just because I don't know where the rest of their team is. If you don't got them on vision, you don't really want to be taking fights where they can kite you out and stall you. Because if they show up with backup, you don't want to get shredded and lose. It's very important when you are one of the main things ahead on your team. You want to make sure you're not making really stupid throwing moves like just overextending. Now you'll see kind of our neutral game here. Unfortunately, that canister does fall over the wall, so I can't really commit to get it. But you just want to keep pelting people with cleavers in this neutral. I opt for Viego because I know he can't avoid it, and we can kind of lock him down and finish him. Now, the next highest priority is probably going to be Vayne. However, with the Akali getting close and hurt, I opt to try to get her dealt with. Once she is dealt with, I want to go for the next lowest target. This Vayne going pretty mental, popping Ghost, I immediately want to start kiting this out. Because when you kite her out, it forces her into a straight line. This makes her overcommit and allows us to get her killed. That's another thing with Mundo. With how your W ult works and your playstyle of being able to kite with Q, it's very important to know how to bait people, staying just at the edge of their range and making them think we can kill you to lure them into bad situations or just time them out. Now pushing here with the Draven, it's mostly just going to be getting some turrets. Again, Mundo just such a good split pusher and able to take turrets with the team as well. I don't really end up split pushing much this game just since I'm mid lane. We do end up going here. I'm going to show you the power of Warbogs with this next clip. We get this taken. Draven tries to take the red buff. I try to maybe secure it. Once I see this Akali though, I'm like, let me just gimp her. Akali is one of the only things that can really get into our backline consistently. That's why I was trying to mess her up. As you see, I'm getting pretty beat up here, but with my force of nature, I'm able to just kind of walk on out. Now you might be like, oh no, our tank's half health. I'm Mundo with 4 Mogs, it doesn't really matter. But that Akali, as you can see, is already on our last leg before this fight even starts. Still coming in at that health. Now I immediately go for the Vayne here as the top priority, and I'm going to go after this Akali. She overcommits. You just want to finish these off so they don't do something stupid. Next is that Viego because he is the highest priority probably on their team. Now that I'm hurt, there's no reason for me to chase and get picked off here, so I just kind of play back, let them finish up. My team's doing good, and I started letting that Warmogs just top me off so then I can help with Dragon. We can go secure Baron after this. I wait just a little extra just so I don't get hit with a random Dragon shot to make sure I'm full health for the Baron. That way if they try to come up and turn on us, we're all good. Now, as you can see, we're kind of getting to the close on this game. When you're fed on Mundo, you can dictate the pace pretty hard just by shoving waves and constantly just pulling ahead of the enemy to where they can't even get back in the game if they wanted to. As you can see here, I ended up taking a little too long to decide on my item, but I go for a Deadman's. I thought about doing a Randuin's Omen as it's very good against crit marksman. However, as you can see, the Vayne actually went to an on-hit build and the Severe went for a lethality build. That's why I don't go Randuin's Omen, even though that's an amazing item on Dr. Mundo. And I would normally recommend going in almost every game if there's a crit marksman, especially if there's like a Yone or Yasuo. However, with them being an on-hit and effectively AD caster, I opted not to go for it and instead go for Deadman's just so I had more pressure, and if I needed to, I could kite out that Vayne a little harder. Now, with no objectives on the board, we're just looking to siege here. A lot of people don't usually use Baron buff the way it's supposed to be, and that's just forgetting important objectives. We're not pushing top, but we are pushing bot, and we are pushing mid. It's pretty good here. With the cannon, we can easily get to their inhibitors. That's what I'm trying to do here, is get an inhibitor cracked so we can start taking more map pressure. Now, even in this neutral game, you always want to just be going for cleavers. At this point, it doesn't even affect my health, so there's no reason not to fish for them. If you hit one, you can potentially go after them. Now, our Draven gets a nice little assassination down here, and we just kind of start backing out and clear vision. We want to start going for this bottom turret, but with my Lilia pushing up so much, I just want to kind of be as a little insurance policy here, and just kind of ward enemies off. A lot of enemies just don't like getting close to Mundo, especially once you're ahead, so you can be a pretty good kind of natural deterrent. Now this Akali, just, I don't know what to say about her. Once this cleaver's hit, she's pretty much dead. Just hit the slow, and she's gone. Now, with the Vayne coming in, once I see her, I just kind of want to back out because I wasn't going to commit my ult yet. So I just kind of back up and leave. There's no reason for us to stay. They're ahead. When I see her commit down here, I just run to try to kill her under turret. I don't notice this Gwen, and admittedly, I probably should have ran back to help her. But, hey. Now, that little play right there didn't seem like much, but it's actually a pretty big tip on Mundo. This is something you should be taking into consideration, especially once you have Deadman's Plate or you're using your ult. Once she flashes, I know she has no way to get away from me unless she just avoids all of my cleavers. So instead of throwing anything, I just run up to her, hit her with the auto, then throw the cleaver. Once you hit her with that auto, the slow field drops, so you know that auto is going to hit. At this point is when I noticed what was happening to the Gwen. I was a little too excited, so I opted instead to destroy this turret as fast as possible so we can continue the siege bot lane with our cannon minion. When Super's pushing in on their base, it's going to be very awkward for them to defend this. Plus, our Trundle is opting to do a split push as well, topside. What you're going to be doing on sieges with Mundo is pretty basic. You're just going to be fishing for cleaver shots and trying to make sure that you're not getting flanked. Mundo can always be the first one to take the blunt of a Brova attack, just because you're able to regen it and kind of shrug it off better than your, I don't know, ADC who's trying to turret dive. As you can see, this Viego is getting caught up at a base. We get another free turret, and we even get the inhibitor here as well. Once this happens, we're in good. Not much they can do here as Trundle's also pushing, and they've got supers down middle, they've got supers down sides. This frees us up completely to go do whatever we want. Now, if you look at the time-wise, Dragons should be coming up soon, if I believe right. Yeah, that's going to be the next big fight. Now, that was a little ballsy what I did there. I probably shouldn't have gone that. Don't do that if you're ahead at this point. I could have potentially started getting locked up. The main reason I'm not really worried to do it here is because their team has negative CC practically. So I'm totally fine getting up close and personal with them. This is a big thing. If you're ever going to set up for big objective fights, try to secure the Scuttle Crab strat beforehand. That way vision control is really in favor of your team. I set up that ward here because what I'm really looking to do before this fight begins is pressure with cleavers as much as possible. Right now I'm just trying to make sure the Akali is permanently revealed for our Draven to kite it out. And honestly, our Draven did a very good job this game. Now the reason I go for the Lux instead of the Severe here at the first is because she's honestly more of a threat to me. She can hold me down. That lethality Severe can't do much to me at all. Viego's down. It's just a matter of running down this Vayne. Sure enough, there she goes. We grab our dragon and then we just kind of end out the game from here. That's Mundo, and kind of doing a final run over the items. This is a very good build for Mundo if you're going ahead and getting ahead. Frostfire, Steel Caps, Warmogs, Force of Nature, and Thornmail, along with that Deadman's Plate. It gives you a lot of damage on the build, a lot of good resistances, and a lot of health. With your runes too, having Overgrowth, Grasp of the Undying, you're going to be scaling up very well in late game, just being an oppressive monster of a champion. That's pretty much all of it for the video today. I hope y'all guys enjoyed and got a little bit more understanding on Mundo. This was kind of thrown together last minute, so it might not be the most professional one I've done, but I hope y'all enjoyed regardless. Hope to see y'all guys some other time.